Hello, friends. My name is Chloë Faith Urban, and I'm the co-host of the Activate Change podcast. I wanted to take a moment to introduce you to Soul Care, our sacred monthly membership designed to nourish your spirit and bring you back to yourself. Because life, it can feel relentless. One minute you're fine, the next, a headline, an email, or a random thought hits, and suddenly your nervous system is in overdrive, your stomach is tight. So how do you stay anchored when the world keeps shaking? That's exactly why we created Soul Care, a space to reconnect, to breathe, and to remember who you actually are. Each month, we gather online and most months in person for deep spiritual transmissions, activations, and healing practices to help you tap into resilience, connection, and divine wisdom. Join us for just $20 a month and let's do this together because we really do need each other. You can also join us month to month for just $29. Our next date is this Sunday, February 9th. Go to LaChiaraMethod.com/membership to sign up, and I'll make sure to have that link in the show notes as well. Do you ever wonder to yourself, I know I'm capable of so much more, but I'm stuck in fear and second-guessing myself all the time? Well, let me tell you, you're not alone. But the good news is it doesn't have to feel this way. Our From Surviving to Thriving Level 1 training is here to help you step out of survival mode and into a life where you feel more grounded, connected, and capable of thriving. Imagine waking up each day feeling more clear, more confident, and finally able to trust yourself. It's time to show up as the version of you that you've always known was possible. Visit LaChiaraMethod.com/level-1 to sign up today. It really is your time to thrive. Let's do this together. Welcome to the Activate Change podcast, where transformation is just a conversation away. Some episodes of this podcast offer an intimate front row seat to an authentic and unscripted personal healing session with renowned healer and creator of the LaChiara Method, Gabrielli LaChiara. Our incredibly generous and courageous guests explore their genuine struggles, longings, and deepest desires in these sessions. And we, as listeners, have the honor and privilege to witness their sacred and profound healing journeys. As you listen, we invite you to receive as well, feeling into where the healing and insights that transpire might spark transformation in your own life. And stay tuned until the end because I, Chloë Faith Urban, will discuss the session and share a skill or framework that Gabrielli used, which you can apply to your own personal healing. And because of the LaChiara Method's deep commitment to collaboration and perpetual learning, some episodes will highlight conversations with other thought leaders, healers, and activists on the path to bring healing, liberation, and true equality to the world. This podcast does contain adult language and content, so if you have little ones around you, you may want to use headphones. In this episode, Gabrielli has a session with Izzy, who explores their fear of intimacy and seeks deeper connections in both romantic and platonic relationships. Together, they uncover that their birth trauma has impacted them feeling safe in relationships, and they explore what it takes to lean into the vulnerability of having needs, desires, and deeper intimacy in their life. Izzy has had many LaChiara Method sessions in the past and is a certified LaChiara Method radical life coach. Toward the end of the episode, I share my personal struggles and insights on managing the complexities of relational dynamics, especially the challenge of balancing mutual needs. I also offer some thought-provoking questions designed to guide you further in your journey of navigating these dynamics in your own life and relationships. Let's dive in.
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to your podcast session.
So excited.
I'm so happy to have you here. Let's land together, and this will give me a second to find myself, my own integrity in the space. And for you, my invitation is to really sink in, kind of in between all the stories and lines and things that are going on for you, so that you can find the pulse of what you might need from me today.
Sounds good.
And I'm going to invoke that this time is for you, and that you get to receive what you need for healing, discovery, awareing, support, connection. And then I'm going to take a moment to clear the space of any energy in between us, with either of us, in the space and around us, that is not generative and not required for your healing. Commanding our bodies and beings to release anything that's not ours, and activate change and generate healing immediately. And as well, let's just dispel and liberate. Imagine that we can free and liberate any energies that just don't need to be here, that they themselves can be free to find their own place, their own alignment, their own resources, and activate change and generate healing immediately.
Wow. Wow, you're powerful. There's a lot that just moved on out right there.
Right? I felt that too. It was like this, the window opened and this like river of a breeze, like a deep breeze. So we can do a little bit more of that, actually. Maybe that's actually helpful for us to just stay in that pulse for a second, I was wondering. And really help to clarify what you need in this moment, and maybe in any moment, but in this one in particular.
Yeah. Felt really like the back half of my brain that's just been on like overdrive kind of dissipated.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Let's do a little more. And I'm going to invite you for this particular moment to try to breathe relatively evenly. So not to do longer exhales or longer inhales, but just to try to find some homeostasis. And that doesn't have to be long breaths in it. They don't have to be short breaths, but just to notice, like, can I regulate myself in a little bit more of an even curve? And if that's too stressful, just don't do it.
Okay.
And if it feels safe for you, you can close your eyes. And if not, that's fine too.
Awesome.
Good. And let me sweep the space clear one more time, knowing that all of us, every single human, is empathic, and therefore we're always carrying shit that's not ours. And that we also carry a ton that is ours. And in any given moment, sifting through that material to decide what's now, what's present, what's most generative in this moment is a big question. Whether that's when we're stepping into knowing what to eat, where to go, what to choose, how to think, whether we shower that day or not. And so let's clarify and tonify your energy field by commanding that your body and being can release all that's not yours. Meaning all that's not required right now, even that may be yours but isn't yours in this moment to be addressing. And we command our bodies and being to release everything that isn't ours and to gift it to the vibrational source of consciousness. That source of consciousness that is you, that's part of your own filter system, your own source of healing, clarifying, perspective, awareing, if that's a word, and knowing, and activate change and generate healing immediately. And let's dispel and liberate any invasive energies that really aren't yours. Anything flying around the field, in and around us, anything that now can be liberated, released, gifted to its own vibrational source, its own places, separate from you and your body, your home, your room, your pets, your home. And commanding our bodies and beings to release also all of that and activate change and generate healing immediately. And let's invoke and can proclaim and pronounce that this is the moment to find you again, new, present, aware of what you need, and that you get to receive. Good. That word just had such a huge power pack in my gut, almost like, what does it mean, Izzy, for you to receive?
Yeah.
What does it even mean?
I think you're right on the money with that one. Just like actually, let me just name first how good that was. I just like hadn't done anything related to sessions at all in a couple weeks, and I was just like, oh yeah, that's why I wanted to do this. But yeah, I like a couple minutes ago, like I was very just thinking about all this stuff that went down with my animals, and I don't actually I don't think that's where I want to like dive into today.
Yeah.
I think that's just kind of like normal reaction, and like is what it is. But yeah, I have been thinking a lot about like what it does mean to receive recently, because like in relation to others and like in relation to building relationships, both like friendships and then like romantic relationships, longer term relationships. Because I'm really good at functioning on my own, and I can just kind of like do my thing, and like I like just being by myself, and not having to deal with kind of like other, like it definitely, there's an air of masking that happens for me when I like have to deal with other people, of just like needing to show up in a different way, and it just of course gets exhausting after a while. So there's that, but also just the like desire to be seen in the times that aren't like put together and aren't like refined and nice. And I just keep like I'm able to kind of get over that bump of like, oh, this is like uncomfortable, but I'm going to talk about it anyways, or like, oh, I'm feeling really shitty right now, but I'm going to let you come hang out with me anyways. But it's still really difficult, and everything becomes just really instantly black and white when I try to like envision a more like intimate setting of a relationship, really any type of relationship, but anything that just kind of moves back past like preliminary friendship. And it's really difficult for me to exist there, and I think there's a lot of primal brain issues, and I like haven't been dealing with it for a while because I think it's just such a huge commitment to really go into like working on that part of myself, but it would be nice to have that accessible, because I've just kind of decided that I just like can't go there until this makes more sense, which is, I think, honestly probably the right choice, because I don't think I'd get very far anyways, but I have completely limited myself. Yeah.
That is a lot in what you just said.
Yeah.
I feel like I want to acknowledge all that, but I also kind of want to read between the lines and see if I'm picking up on what you're naming, and you can just reflect back to me if I'm missing it at all. But the in between, first of all, the in between the lines are very teary. There's like a lot of vulnerability around being seen, but also being cared for is what I heard. Like it's like, oh wait, what does it mean to let other people take care of you? And you're asking for like a kind of vulnerability to be more exposed, like unmasked. You said masked, and I'm like, okay, unmasked in relationship, but that means that unmasked means that I have needs, and or you have needs. And so the big like kind of pull, what felt like kind of pulsy, almost like like it needs to be kneaded, like dough. It kind of feels hardened, is this like, can I get my needs met? And can I have needs? And what are my needs? And if I expose them and they're not met, could I also get injured? And I really got the like, whoa, is someone going to attack me if I get that open? And so those are the things between the lines that I heard, and you can refine for me what you think feels true or not true about that.
I think that's really true. I think that's what I was going for, and I think you worded it beautifully. Of just really, it's hard for me to acknowledge that I like. There's kind of two levels of, or probably many, but in my brain, two at least that I can separate. Of like, I need the basic things. I need you to show up. I need you to communicate. And this is just like general, like I expect this of my friends and I expect this of people I work with, and just like things I like my coworker who I work with, I need you to break down the boxes, which they tell me more than I tell them because I'm the one who's bad at it. But like just like just that stuff. And but then there's the like I would like to please be held while I'm like having a crisis, and like can I even ask for that? Is that okay? Am I supposed to be able to handle that on my own? Like I didn't even know where the line is between what I quote unquote should be able to just deal with and like what's normal and expected, and what's like no, it's reasonable to want someone else to hold you together because I can't.
On how to read the room. Like I just got like, whoa, that's also confusing because maybe someone who can hold it sometimes can't hold it every time. And when is it appropriate to ask, but also when is it appropriate to expect?
Right.
And how to have relationships where the person can say no and
Right.
yes, and that you know they'll say no or yes, but that there's also like a kind of an intimacy in trust with one another, that you have somebody there who can say, well, right now I don't have it to give that. And that you're not going to like fall apart if they say no either, if you get that vulnerable to even ask for it. Like I got like confusion really came in around what the hell, how do I do this? Like, how do I just be that messy,
Yeah.
really? Yeah.
Just, I think, yeah, really knowing like, what if you say no and like, okay, what then? Like, what?
Yeah.
And I'm
Right.
just like, that's not, I don't know. I think I'm prone to being like, I can manage, I can do it by myself. I'm good. I don't need help.
Yeah.
And so, and it's not, this isn't teased apart enough for me to really trust that, like, if I asked for something and whoever I was asking said no, I would be like, okay, let me think about this rationally. I would probably go into like a hyper independent spiral that is not going to be good for anyone.
Right. Which is still, as you were saying, all or nothing. It's still that, like you called it the black and white thinking. I think of that as the polarities that happen when there has been either enough oppression or trauma in our lives that we can't see the rainbow sherbet in the middle. It's all we see is like it's either or. Either I do it this and it fails, or I don't do that ever and I stay stoic and like take care of myself and independent. And I'm going to take an attempt at this, but it's just going to prove to me that I need to be more independent and not ever have those needs. So I'm really feeling the, and I don't know what you might say is in there, but I'm really feeling the edges of trauma and injury. And
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, absolutely. And then like, am I going to leave myself in a worsened state than before I even asked, trying to like put myself together after feeling rejected and vulnerable?
Right. Right.
And
Right.
it's just like, it's not, it's completely, it's like a putting on performance then at that point.
What's amazing is that you've come far enough to know that like you can handle being not having those needs met. I mean, it makes sense that you have all the boundaries and coping skills put in place so that you can take care of yourself, and you do, and you can hold it, and you can mask and make it okay, and you can never get those needs met intimately, and you're fine, quote unquote.
Yeah.
What's also amazing is that some part of you knows that that's not enough, and
Yeah.
that you're kind of healed enough of that inner part that I can feel like there's the beginning of the longing, like, wait a minute, there's got to be a way to do this. There's got to be another way in here. And that is that rainbow sherbet trying to open up. And I can see it like opens a little and is like, nah! Like the rubber bands are strong, to pull you back. But this feels important and healthy to look at. And it feels kind of required and almost critical for your well-being that you learn this, learn the next steps of what it means to be in relationship.
I think it is. And it's just also like continuing down the line of like not stopping at the place where my parents stopped. I mean, not that they've stopped growing, but like I like just, I mean, I've definitely inherited similar coping skills and also similar vices, I guess.
Yeah.
And I just want to be able to not have them affect me in the exact same way. Like just keep looking at it to try to not get stuck. Or if I get stuck, like reevaluate.
Okay, let's see where to go with this, yeah? Take a few minutes on it, and I'm going to do what I did at the beginning, which is just clear what we don't need so that in this moment you can really know exactly where we're going to focalize, aim in and heal. And so in this kind of powerful moment of exploring intimacy, who are you as an intimate being? What is your own life going to lead you into? Like, what does it mean for you to have care from others, be cared for, be held, be in crisis, not be in crisis, hold others people's crises, all the layers and complexities? What is relationship on all levels, be it those friendships or lovers or family, and who is Izzy? Who are you? And as we refine and look and feel for what you need today, we know that this is one step towards many more to come. And that this one step is enough to say, okay, where am I going next? Where do I put my toes? What water am I touching? And activate change and generate healing immediately. And all the inherited injury, let's release injury recall. The injuries that caused the vices and the coping skills that maybe you don't yourself need anymore. Let's release injury recall. Physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, energetic, genetic, past, present, and future. Activate change and generate healing immediately. How's that feel?
Kind of like panicky, not like on the verge of a panic attack, but like just elevated.
Yeah.
Like hyper vigilant.
Yeah. Where is it in your body or out of your body?
It's kind of like in my chest, like usually when I start taking intentionally deep breaths, it's because I don't feel like I'm getting enough air or like spaciousness naturally. So I think that's a sign that it's kind of around like my shoulder, my collarbones.
That's what I was feeling too. I was really feeling that like edgy, racy, like a little bit compressed.
Yeah.
Right up in that, like under the throat area, right in there. Let's go there. Let's talk to that part of you. Let's just hold that space for a minute. And with full permission to close this. This is your healing session. If somewhere in your knowing or your body or your being, you're like, okay, that was enough to say, I want to stop now, you have full permission to stop the process.
Mm-hmm.
You have full permission to enter it in any way that feels vulnerable, but healthy for you. Because I know it's vulnerable. We can see that, right? But it's whatever's your own relationship to health in this moment. What does your body know for you right now that you need in this specific moment?
Just getting a lot of like, yeah, raciness and kind of like quick mental images. Yeah, of like the like barricading of just like, yes, there's something to both protect and then meaning that there's something to protect from, like
Yeah.
part of my body or my being or something is not wanting more to come in because it feels dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah. And is it still generative for us to continue peering into that?
Yeah.
To take another step? Okay.
Yeah.
With like tears in my eyes, I just get the question, who's attacking you?
Hmm. I feel like it's I feel three things. I feel like there's this deep-seated, um, like from birth, maybe before, probably before, just like just this like broken kind of uh shield that's like I was supposed to have, but it's just like cracked and crumbling in some areas, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not actually working as a defense. And so I'm just like the first part of me to exist is just always threatened.
Yeah.
There's like always primal brain
Right.
issues that are just up, which makes sense because I was born knowing like I was born and the doctors knew something was going to be wrong. And the first 6 weeks I was in the hospital
Right.
with the thing that if they didn't fix, I would have died.
Right. You were unsafe to begin with.
It was
Right.
literally life
Yeah.
threatening. And I
Yep.
was living in the body of someone who was freaking stressed out about it. Like,
Yeah.
that
Scared,
makes
right?
sense.
Yeah.
But it's like this deep, it's just like, I'm just unsafe. I just am.
Right.
And
Right.
whatever defenses were supposed to be there, whatever like reassurances are
Mm-hmm.
just kind of cracked and crumbling and not really
Oh,
there.
it just feels so important to talk about, like your
Yeah.
whole, like that first layer of innocence that a newborn and
Yeah.
even a baby in utero that we want them to have, right? The fantasy is that there's a layer of innocence and they come in and they're so protected by the parental, whoever those parents are, like the parental energy field. That when I work with newborns, I always have the parents doing like triple chakras around their newborn so that baby never feels like it doesn't have an energy field, and you're talking about like an instant, born in a lack of safety, born in danger,
Yeah.
and that even if your parents were amazing, they can't fix that. There's like,
Yeah.
not to mention that they're whatever they were like terror if they were terrorized, whatever experiences they were having, right?
They were terrorized.
Yeah,
And I had great doctors, and like it was, I mean, I'm here and I'm living, and it's not an issue anymore. But
you're a miracle.
just like I was like, when people talk about like being 20 at age 12, I was
Yeah,
age 20 at age 0. Like,
yeah, right, right.
so that's,
And I'm hearing like kind of born the healer's journey already, like born knowing, that life doesn't come with a guarantee, like no pretense, no innocence, no fantasy of safety. Like you came in born aware of what existence in a body means. And that's huge. That's just huge. And obviously terrifying, but also like inspiring in some way. It's like, um, but
yeah,
painful. And of course, there's a question of how to include others in your bubble, and what you have decided is safety. Like you have now reorganized as a young adult and have a whole set of understanding of what it means to be safe inside yourself. You've done that for you. Your parents have done that for you too, but you've done it now. You've like figured out what safety means, and now you're like, oh, now I need to open the bubble and rebirth myself. And in birthing myself again, I need to face the safety issues of my birth, which it makes sense to me, right? Like
yeah,
you're coming to a phase where you don't want to be dependent on, like you don't want your parents to define your safety. You want to define it.
yeah.
That's my guess. I just made that up, but like that's what I feel.
I mean, it's just, yeah, it's just that feeling. I mean, yes. Well, okay, let me back up. Just real quick, the two other things that came up, and this is in opposite like succession. Like the first thing I thought of was my just like the past relationship I had with someone who I like definitely thought was going to be in my life for forever, and was like, okay, like we're linked somehow, and maybe still are. And it's just like I have a lot of unresolved anger and rage, honestly, and just like sadness and resentment around that I never really, I just like will never get closure on it because we're not in contact. I do not intend to be.
Mm,
And that's fine. But I was so busy post breakup making sure I took inventory of all the ways in which like I screwed up and like how to get the next day alive,
Right.
that I like didn't have the space to just feel really betrayed and hurt and angry about all of it. So
Yeah.
that, and then just my like parenting, some of that lack of safety coming from there. But yeah,
your parents being unsafe for you sometimes. Yeah.
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 But it really
I
just
don't know why I said
feels
sometimes, could be all the time. But you're saying there's
yeah.
so feeling the way you were parented and the safety issues in that, and then this major safety issue of a relationship breakup where you're coming now, or maybe have been coming to terms with like the ways in which it was unsafe for you before it even happened, before the breakup even happened.
It was, and then the breakup happened and it was the worst.
Oh,
Worst. It was just
so
awful.
sorry.
So I mean, yeah, it really, thank you. It sucked.
Yeah, it really does suck, right? And bonding, you think maternal bonding, birth, again, our fantasy is, and of course this isn't true for a lot of people, but it's the fantasy is like, oh, my child will be born into a bubble of safety, and their first birthing experience will mimic every emotional, spiritual, and physical birth they have for the rest of their life, right? Like, and then that first birthing experience, there already was danger.
Yeah, and I just
And
feel like since then I've been trying since I've become aware of like safety for myself and aware that it's not complete really.
mhm,
It's like it feels like trying to build a sandcastle without like wet sand.
yeah,
Just like it just like crumbling. And I just keep
it
doing
makes
it
so
because I
much
hope it
sense.
works, but
Yeah,
it's not because the
yeah,
foundation isn't there.
right,
Yeah.
right. And it may never be. Like, I can't promise you to say, oh, we can go back and fix that story and give you some foundation that wasn't there the minute you were born, because it wasn't. And, so what do? We also can't have you keep building sandcastles out of dry sand, that feels um, ridiculous, like you're just going to hurt yourself over and over and over again by mistake, trying to do something that, you do need to learn how to do. So it's kind of like, I don't know, feels like a reset, step back and ask the question. It's like, wait, am I even supposed to be playing in the sand, or am I supposed to be somewhere else? What am I doing? Like, am I trying to fix my stories from the past? Am I trying to do something based on somewhere else? Or am I really meeting myself today and saying, what is safety now? And what do I need for structure related to safety in present time? Not what did I need when I was born and what did I need 50 million other times between now and then.
Right.
But like, what do you need now? Like, what's the formula for today that creates a formation, literally, an internal structure and stability, so that you can hold yourself and ask the question and test the edges of what safety means emotionally without having to get to the place where there's nothing there, right? Where you're just blown out or blown over.
Yeah.
And that feels huge.
Yeah.
And so are you willing to redefine and look at and explore somewhere in these months to come? And I'm happy to do more work with you, but like to look at, no, it's not really a but, and to look at, like, am I trying to create a formula based on something that's actually not viable, for what safety is supposed to be now? Can I create a different formula that gives me maybe a whole different mode to play in? And maybe I'm not playing in the sand, I'm playing somewhere else, that suggests that I need a different kind of clay or material, or, water or wind or wings beneath me that are going to actually teach me what it means for me. Knowing my history, including every story I've lived through, but also knowing who I am now, and what does this look like for you to build a life of intimacy, because you deserve to know that.
Yeah. Yes.
And your stories shouldn't be in the way of that. We don't have to break you permanently, even if we can't fix things from the past, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's clear any way in which there's any fantasies, conscious or unconscious, to fix the past by creating some kind of intimacy now that makes up for the fact that you were unsafe when you were born, and that you've been unsafe at other times, and maybe even in utero, and also throughout your life. And are you willing to clear any conscious or unconscious fantasies, drives, urges to fix something that may not be fixable? And you can say no. It's really perfectly fine.
I don't like. Can you repeat that question one more time?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and really, I'm not looking for you to please me and say yes to anything just because I say it. So let's hold
I
the
appreciate
possibility. Would it be generative for you to examine and or release any ways in which you consciously or unconsciously are trying to fix or heal the safety issues of the past through present time, new friendships, relationships, lovers, whatever that may be? And that's not to say that there isn't work you could do with your parents if you wanted to do it to heal things that have happened. I'm not saying you can't go down that road, but we're looking at you forming new relationships or current relationships and friendships and in almost like lateral connective tissue relationships, lovers, whoever they might be, forming them differently to define what safety means to you now and not fix your birth story on a friendship of today. I said a lot. Whatever's
Yes,
coming up for you is fine. You don't even have to have an answer. So,
yes, and I also want to hold the possibility of having what is relevant today be related to
great.
the like 20 years ago birth story and
Right.
just
Yep.
like, yes, it can't be fixed, but I can learn more about it and I
Yeah.
can like do like the more context I have, the more it's going to feel fixed. So like, of course I can go back and relive it, but I think there are ways in which there can be like supplemented stuff so that it doesn't feel so broken.
Yeah.
So
I
yes.
love that.
Yes.
So, for all the aspects of your story and stories in life and living that can be healed, and all the ways in which you can reorganize, rethink, find new perspective, understanding, and use your stories of the past as a way to learn from them so that you can create something in the present that is actually healing for you, right?
Yes.
And that's very different than trying to go back and give yourself something you needed done as if you can go back in time and do it, right? And yet, like, what does it mean now to hold those parts of yourself that did get injured in those times and scared, right? And so, like, it's interesting because I can feel it wanting to get twisty in my brain, but I think it's all true.
Yeah.
I think there's a way, like, I love what you said because we want to use the present time and everything that we've experienced to help us shape what we need now.
Yeah.
We want what we need now to meet who we are now.
Right.
And that is how we heal the past. Because in the now time, we receive something that was being blocked by those traumas that we unblock and give ourselves. It isn't like to fix that thing, but it's for now, right? Does that make sense?
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Again, I love how they get when we're doing conscious to unconscious, like learning is like, it was like stretching the brain. So let's hold for you all the possibilities that in present time you get to heal. And that you really do get to heal and you get to know what healing means to you today. And you get to redefine and understand what safety means to you today. And that all lived experiences become information and resources and perspectives that help guide you to know what you need in this moment now and to help liberate you so that you don't live for the past, but you live for the present and activate change and generate healing immediately. Ooh. Where did that go?
I guess right, kind of like center chest. It doesn't feel as racy. It just kind of feels like right before, like looking over the edge of a really tall building of just like, oh my gosh, like not necessarily bad, but just kind of like excited.
Excited.
Yeah.
So, unfortunately, excitement and fear can feel the same in the body because the body's kind of simple.
Yeah.
So I love that you can feel the difference. That maybe this is a little bit of a different feeling that's leading towards anticipation or excitement,
Yeah.
and away from just terror
Yeah.
or panic. Yeah,
It didn't feel like terror.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So, what now does your body, being, soul, spirit know for you today? What do you know now for yourself about being intimate?
I'm just like very quick to shy away from it. Just like close that door really fast.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so we know that you'll have that reaction, right? And that that's not wrong. And that being conscious of it gives you a moment to decide how long you want to stay there, how far you go into that. It doesn't become permanent. So we embrace that your first kind of autonomic nervous system reactions might be to recoil.
Yeah.
And that of course, your body would have that response. That's a perfectly normal flight response to something that feels scary. Right? There's conditioning. So there's like how we help you through the conditioning, and then there's just like, then there's choice that comes after that.
Yeah.
Okay. So what else do you know that you're pretending not to know about being intimate and being you right now in present time, in this life, in this world?
It's something that like I want, and that's something I need, I think, to do. I mean, to to really like live the extent of what I guess I would consider soul speak, of just like what I've feel like I'm here to do very
Right.
humanitarian work, and that's already what I surround myself with on a daily basis.
Right.
And it's going to serve me better to not be so like just immediately shut off,
Right.
which is already changed. I mean, like I have the capacity to feel more than I have probably in like 8 or 10 years.
That's amazing.
In the last year, I think just from doing this work that is like actively pays attention to what goes on in the body and this like just sensation in general. And so yes, so it's like it's going to serve me if I can figure out how to get there and allow that to happen.
Right. Right. And are you willing in this year to make a change, even if it's 20 more percent
Yes,
in this way?
definitely.
Yeah. So let's embrace you are doing this already, and that what we're doing is looking at another kind of layer in whatever we might call peeling the onion back, or whatever we're doing here, to like continue this progress and to not halt it. And so you've made a lot of progress is what I hear in this year, and you've used this method and your tools, and you're stretched yourself in all kinds of ways, and you're really different than you've maybe ever been. And we get to hold that. You get to have that again and again and again and again, and that it's okay if it feels the same when you contract before you grow, because that's just being human, right? And we can see that what kind of is amazing to me is like a lot of what you're sharing to me feels like you could have been a person to hide from being part of a healer's world, a humanitarian world. Like you could have easily shut down and kept a recoil that was basically like a go away world kind of energy. And it seems to be your soul speak to break through it anyway. Like you're not going to not do this,
Yeah, I've tried.
Like you've done the hardest part.
And I've tried to not. Like I've
Right.
tried to just like shut down and do the thing. I'm really bad at doing things I don't actually want to do.
Right.
Like, remarkably bad at it. So like it's whenever I'm doing something that I don't want to do, even if I like convince myself, I like feel gross about it. And so it's very easy to decipher. Unfortunately, also that means I have to kind of come to terms with this.
Right. Well, I love it because, of course, again, your conditioning would say you don't want to do this. And yet, deep in your soul, you have nurtured yourself enough and nurtured your connection to your own aware self and your own soul that your soul's not letting you give up on it. Your soul's like, sorry, I know you don't want to do this, but it kind of has to happen. And you're listening to both. And that's powerful. You're listening to the human parts of yourself that want to run and fly away from this and be like, fuck you, I'm not doing it, and you're too plugged in and connected and of spirit and awakened to actually like buy your own shit.
We're past
and
that.
Yeah, exactly. And those, but you won't need them at some point, but sometimes that part of our human self that's still locking down is also just helping us pace ourselves So we don't go all or nothing. That you
Right.
don't go so far into like oblivion, like, oh, I'm so faith driven, I can just do whatever I want, and drive yourself out
Right.
into situations that are that much more unsafe for you. So like, you know, I think we want to use that primal brain as a way of just regulating and looking and checking and having be like, okay, there's my recoil. Now let me step back and check if it's really safe or not. Let me make my decisions. Then I can unpack that and follow my soul, you know? And I think we want them in communion.
Yeah.
So all the ways in which your body and being and your primal brain and your soul speak can come into relationship. Are you willing to have that intimacy of self, to have both working together?
Yes,
It
definitely.
kind of reflects what you want from others, right? You want both working together. You want to have like soul driven, deep friendships and connections that are also aware and conscious, but also can have space for the primal needs, you know, the real feral needs of a human form, and can make room to merge the connections. And so let's merge you for you first,
Yeah.
knowing that that will help guide you. And so merging, harmonizing, invoking that you get to receive the feral nature of your human self, immersed and connected and flowing in and through and between is this amazing being and your soul and your spirit and all of who you are too, and those realms. And that what we're asking is for these to all work together, to be massaged, harmonized, connected, and supporting the wholeness of you as one amazing embodied Izzy, and activate change and generate healing and immediately. That feels amazing. Activating the divinity in your cells and particles includes activating all the awareness of being a body in a human form, all of it together. And we bring that all together through the center of who you are and extend it in an embodied you. All the parts welcome and activate change and generate healing and immediately. How's that feel?
It feels a bit more settled.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And as we're starting to close up, is there anything you feel like you need to say or know or do or put in place for yourself to continue your so funny, the word that came to me is recovery. Like, I think you're doing the recovery work of living, you know, in danger, really.
Yeah, and I think there's a part of it that's just like I'm just going to live in that reality because that's the reality I was like that's how I was born.
Mm-hmm.
But also just in terms of like I'm chronically mentally ill. And so that's just like every day it's just like impulsive like thoughts of like am I safe? Am I going to put other
Mm-hmm.
people in danger? Like and just like as much as I might know that that's just kind of like run of the mill doesn't mean anything,
Yeah.
it still is just going to be there every day, like this question of safety and this question it just really is, it's always this question of safety.
Right.
And whether
Right.
that came from the moment I was born or was like inherited or both, like whatever, I don't necessarily didn't know
God's
why.
zillions of lifetimes, right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
but
It's
just
it's there today still.
yeah.
And maybe it'll go away one day. Maybe it'll soften. Maybe you'll have more and more moments of relief of that. It's not stopping you, which is the most powerful thing that you're doing. It's not becoming so much of your identity that you can't also embody all these other parts of yourself that are making deliberate choices to be a contribution on this earth, to show up and be a helper, to like show up and be part of, to have friendships and even look for them and open those doors and even ask for more healing. I mean, that's what's so amazing about you, is that it's all true. And that is, I think, what we're trying to do is create even more communion with the parts and pieces,
Yeah.
to not be controlled by that which isn't fixable now or immediately. Maybe it will in the future, but to also like get more. I feel like you need more resource in that being around this, and more resource of your aware self to actually navigate, to not get stuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think for me, I would see that as like, how do we help you get more resourced so that you can help yourself go through those conditioned moments and not feel so stuck by them.
Yeah, I think the more I can rely on um my just like my soul speak to be a resource and to really be like a voice that I can trust, and
Mm-hmm.
that start like the more I make the decisions to trust it, the more that's coming through. But um it's just going to continue to increase. So,
Yeah. Anything else you feel like you need from me today in all of this?
I think just like clearing anything that's not generative or required.
Okay.
Right now, but yeah, this feels good.
Good. Go back to where we started and let's invoke that we do get to clear, and you do get to clear anything here that we brought up, stimulated, connected to, that maybe isn't required or generative for now and for as you move through this day today in this body. Activate change and generate healing immediately. And let's close circuits on anything that's not yours that came into the field, even if it was inherited and is in your body. And also let's open you to receiving that which is, and more of your own capacity to show up in your soul-driven, soul-speak life, and to have that be completely embraced and embodied and held and loved inside the body that you are, and all the stories that come with that. And activate change and generate healing immediately. Well, that was good.
Yeah, I love the wording you use. It really encapsulates like everything, but it doesn't make it sound like, but like everything that's generative, not just like anything. I don't know.
Not just anything, right?
Just anything.
I always get a little nervous when people are like, I'm calling all the ancestors. I'm like, wait, there's a lot of them. I don't know if we want them all. We just want the ones that are here to help you now be who you are, and who have what we need. It's like, no, we don't really. We want to embrace all of who you are, and we want those parts of who you are that you need in this present time, to be active and generative and awake and helping, right? And there's going to be a lot of parts even of our own self that are just, we need to put on hold for a minute because we can't do it all. We just can't. Otherwise, we blow ourselves out differently. And again, that's that all or nothing thinking. It's like, no, the wholeness of you would mean that somewhere deep inside of yourself, what to attend to today and what to work with and what to let go of.
And also how like amazing is it to have that many parts of yourself and that have information and resource. Like that's what's so cool about it to me.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
Sweet. I'm going to be so curious about where it all goes. I look forward to our next session. Maybe we'll do a part 2 for you because I think that could be really interesting.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Yet again, another amazing session. I so appreciated this one, and I got so much out of it for my own personal journey and the healing process around intimacy, and I'll share more about that. But first, I just want to thank Izzy for your vulnerability and your courage to show up for the healing journey and for all that you explored with Gabrielli in that session. First, I just want to out myself, get real here for a second. I have been trying to come up with something to say that felt meaningful and insightful for this session for quite a while at this point. There's been a lot of procrastination, and I feel like I've sat down like 6 different times trying to write down my thoughts and really see if I could come up with something insightful for you all as listeners. It's just because I literally have been really deep in this healing journey in my own self around needs and relationship and intimacy and what that means and how to do it in a way that's really fulfilling and not totally distorted in my own trauma. And all that to say, I really have come so far in my healing journey around intimacy and connection, whether that's in partnership or with friends or beloveds in my life. But at the same time, it's still one of really the more challenging aspects of my life, and I have a feeling that's true for a lot of us. And as I was listening to this beautiful session with Izzy, I was hearing so many incredible nuggets that, yes, I have heard said many times. I might have even said them myself, but to just hear them in this context and again is so helpful. You know that feeling? It's like the James Baldwin quote or the Audre Lorde or Alok quotes that I could read over and over again and still have them land and awaken me in new ways each time because I'm in a different place in my life, in my journey, as I read or listen to them. One part that stuck out for me was actually at the beginning of the episode, about 12 minutes in, and they're talking about intimacy, about needs, about when to lean in and share your needs, needing to read the room, and how to hold your vulnerability when you voice a request or need without totally falling apart if someone says no to that request you have. I wanted to read a quote from the session about this. I cleaned it up a bit so that it would make it easier for you. Gabrielli says, "You mentioned being masked. And what I hear in that is if you're unmasked in a relationship, it means you have needs. I can feel a pull in that and the wonderings it feels like are underneath there. Like, can I get my needs met? Can I have needs? And what are my needs? If I expose them and they're not met, could I get hurt? And if I feel even deeper into it, it feels like, whoa, is someone going to attack me if I get that open? The reality is, maybe someone who can hold space for you sometimes might not be able to do so every time. Like, when is it appropriate to ask for support, and when is it appropriate to expect it or not? How do we build relationships where it's okay for someone to say yes or no? And they'll be honest with you either way. There's a certain intimacy and trust involved when you have someone who can tell you, right now, I just don't have it to give. And you won't fall apart if they say no, even when you're that vulnerable. I can feel the confusion really come in around it all. Kind of like, what the hell? How do I do this? And how do I just be that messy? And that's the end of the quote. I just have to say yes to all of this. And it can get so confusing when there's been enough trauma, especially interpersonal trauma, like Dr. Thema speaks about in our interview in episode 18. We can get so confused. When there's been real betrayal, violation, abuse, and or huge trauma to the actual body, like with Izzy and their birth story, it's just a lot to hold. And it's really just a humbling thing to think about for me. And no wonder we're all so confused out in the world with each other, right? I mean, how much of this stuff is happening all of the time? So I want to offer an activation to all of us, especially those of us that struggle to voice, know, share our needs, or meet others' needs as well. And any injury recall that kicks in about it all for you. Maybe as you're listening, you're feeling a little anxiety rise up or a knot in your stomach. For me, as I'm saying this, I can feel my shoulders tense up a little bit, and I feel a little activated and even shaky. So here we go. None of us have this whole thing called life and relationships figured out. And that's why I'm here talking real talk to you. And this particular activation I'm about to share with you has been so helpful for me around all of this. And just before I do the activation with you, I just want to point out that episode 10 of the podcast, I actually share about what activations are in the LaChiara method and this particular activation, which is called release injury recall. You can close your eyes, you can stay open, you can jump up and down, you can just feel it wash over you. I'm just going to say the activation 3 times. And if it feels good for you to breathe at the end of each activation to cleanse it all out and through, that works. If you just want to listen and be in your own breath timing, all good too. So I command the vibrational source of consciousness to release all injury recall. Physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, energetic, and genetic, past, present, and future. Activate change and generate healing immediately. And take a breath if that feels good. And I command the vibrational source of consciousness to release all injury recall, specifically around relationships, around intimacy, about vulnerability, around being in relationships to other people, what it is to be in your openness, in your authenticity, be your real self with other people. And let's release that on the physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, energetic, and genetic levels. Activate change and generate healing immediately. Breathing in and release. And one more time, let's command the vibrational source of consciousness to release injury, recall, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, energetic, and genetic, past, present, and future. Activate change and generate healing immediately. And take a nice breath if that feels good. And just noticing what that brings up for you in your body, how that feels. See if that tension has changed or shifted at all for you. There we go. So, yeah, revealing your needs can sometimes feel like you're opening yourself up to getting hurt. I mean, if you've been let down before, that fear is totally valid. It's like really the question, should I just not bother? Do I keep my needs to myself to avoid the pain? But then that just shuts you out from those deep, real connections I think so many of us long for in our lives. Now, think about what we miss out on when we don't open up in that way, when we do just hold ourselves back to avoid the pain. By holding back, we rob ourselves of the chance to experience genuine support, the kind that can only come when we let others in. We miss out on relationships where we're fully understood and appreciated for our authentic selves, not just the shiny social media versions, but the real, raw us. We lose opportunities for deeper empathy, where friends or partners don't just sympathize, but truly get where we're coming from because we've shared our true feelings with them. And let's just be fully honest here. Intimacy is freaking messy. And being messy means acknowledging that our needs don't make us weak. They make us human. And what does it take for us to know and even accept that sometimes showing our needs will lead to rejection or pain? But it can also crack the door open to those deeper, more meaningful connections, the kind built on real, mutual understanding and care. Each step towards vulnerability and allowing ourselves to be cared for is a step towards that deeper intimacy and connection I know I want in my close relationships, and I imagine you do too. Knowing that not everyone you're in relationship will meet you there, or can even meet you there, but that there are people in this world that are safe to bring close, that do want the same kind of authentic connection you long for, and that can genuinely meet you in the messy, gnarly, raw, beautiful dance of shared intimacy. It's like we're all walking this tightrope between keeping our independence and leaning into interdependence, toggling between maybe holding back a bit or just going for it, going all out open, letting those we trust see all of us, scars, quirks, and all. By opening up, we don't just share our struggles, we open the door to sharing our joys, our triumphs, and everyday moments that truly enrich our lives. This kind of connection, to me, it's worth the risk, right? And navigating the messiness of human connection is a perpetual journey. And as we wrap up today's episode, I really encourage you to reflect on your own experiences with vulnerability and intimacy. What's this session and conversation stirring in you? Where might you be holding back in a way that's keeping you from the kind of deep connection you crave? Or where might you be opening up too much in places or scenarios that might not be the appropriate or safe enough relationships to really share yourself fully? Trauma can really confuse it all. We can lean into people that aren't safe and be repulsed or even turned away from the very people that might actually be the ones we can truly trust with our hearts, our quirks, and our scars. And what does it take to begin to rewire some of that in you? And what do you really want in your relationships? If you're someone who likes to journal or write things down, or maybe you like to speak in your little voice memo app on your phone, I just invite you to write some thoughts that are stirred by these questions. Maybe Just maybe they'll help to begin to unlock a new way of doing intimacy for you. Until next episode, sending you lots of love. Thank you so much for being a part of the Activate Change community. If you want even more amazing content, head over to LaChiaraMethod.com. And while you're there, be sure to join our mailing list so you don't miss a thing. You'll get instant access to our ultimate self-care bundle to clear your energy, boost your vitality, and feed your soul, plus exclusive content, special invites to live events, and personal updates we don't share anywhere else. We're so grateful to be on this journey with you. See you next time.
Loosen, baby. You don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go.
Saying a huge thank you to Ali Halpert, the incredible musician and songwriter behind the songs featured in this podcast. To hear more of Ali's music and learn more, visit alihalpert.com. You can find the link in our show notes.